team Katia seems to be the favourite, but other names in the mix include England's Bukayo Saka and Fulham's Alex Iwobi.
What I think about Ide is that his voice is quite far forward. There's a very light, open quality to his rap. Bukayo's voice lends itself a bit more towards that.
This line clothes the core screen professional footballer, but this all being the mind.
It doesn't really matter who he is. I think it's kind of more of a reflection of this increasing overlap between football, music, entertainment, kind of just seeing people as like cultural exports.
Sky News, of course, asked to verify DJ's identity, a request which he politely declined.
Nothing was really thought out to trick people or whatever. Like I said, the main thing for me is the music rather than the people. And yeah, I guess the fans and the public kind of just ran, all these different opinions on who they thought it was, which is cool that everyone, like I said, everyone's opinion.
Is it the real deal? Well, you look at first footballers to miss a penalty. When it comes to scoring goals and spitting bars, at the very least, amateur like these online.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we're going to take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Hill. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Observer, their headline: Netanyahu declares a second war of independence, his fears for Gazans.
Vitality gets your health moving forward. And this is how it's done. They help you get healthier. And they get you back in the game. Taking you to the next level. A step ahead. Because progress only happens when you move forward. And forward feels good. Move forward with Vitality.
Get bye. Bye.
Alright. Excuse me. Oh, you getting your tea? There you go, you said the £2 on that lot of the co-op member prices. Loads of tasty stuff cheaper, just not being a co-op member. Come on, they'd be tough not to.
Even a cuppa donut, those co-op members save more.
Ooh.
Sign up and save more.
Oh.
And Merrin, I'm the farmer, was very obsessed with veg. Let's call it dedication, really. It's just a tasty effort.
Did you know, by switching to cooler water, you can save up to 50% of the energy used when washing up? Fairy Max Power's special formula cuts through tough, greasy challenges up to 4 times faster in cooler water. For a sparkling clean. Fairy Max Power. Drop the hot and save up to 50% of the energy when washing up. And for antibacterial protection on your sponge, try Fairy Max Power Antibacterial. For over 40 years, we've unlocked the heart of Latin America, bringing you its hidden wonders with award-winning expertise and a treasury of local knowledge. Experience something extraordinary. Journey Latin America, utterly protected.
SCS is the October Offer Fest. Pay just £10 a month for a sofa you love this weekend. Order the Hoxton sofa now for only $360 and you can still get cosy before Christmas. Or the Aurora, also $360, worth just £10 a month when you spread the cost over 3 years, interest-free. Offer ends 3rd of October. SCS, helping create the home you love.
Spreads and happiness at breakfast. Tasty on toast. Perfect on pancakes. Nutella goes with waffles. and surprises. It's made of quality ingredients, like roasted hazelnuts and cocoa. So whatever you have for breakfast, it'll be a happy one.
Manchester, save it on style and speed. But the rip off and tough and nowhere else. United gets this weekend. Will it be red or blue? To upgrade to the Manchester Derby, visit sky.com/sports.
This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what's in the front pages as they arrive, but first a reminder of our top stories. Israel's Prime Minister has addressed his nation to say his war against Hamas has now entered a new stage, an expanded ground operation in Gaza, which he says will be long and difficult. Thousands of protesters have marched through London, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza to allow humanitarian aid. And in Maine, police have found the body of the gunman responsible for America's deadliest mass shooting this year. Hello, you're watching the preview of this book. There are also on the front pages as they arrive. And in the next half hour, we'll see this headlines with journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Conservative Post, Henry Hill. So let's see what is on some of those front pages now, while the Observer meets with growing fears for people in Gaza after tonight's speech by the Israeli Prime Minister, in which he called the war with Hamas his country's second war of independence. The Times too meets with those remarks by Benjamin Netanyahu. To ensure victory, the Telegraph says Israel is sending in elite troops prepared for a long war. And here at home, the Express reports that the Prime Minister is under increasing pressure to ban what it calls extremist groups stirring up hatred at pro-Palestinian marches. The Mirror has a story about a government minister appearing in court with a suspended MP withdrawn. And the Sunday People leads with former Health Secretary Matt Hancock and remarks he's made about the COVID-19 pandemic on a reality TV show that says, and a reminder that by scanning the QR code you will see on screen during the program, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And as I mentioned, we're joined tonight by journalist and author Christina Patterson, deputy editor of Conservative Post. So welcome both. Unsurprisingly, all of pretty much every front page focusing on the statements made by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's start with the Sunday Telegraph. Israel sends in elite troops for a long war, because that's what Netanyahu said. He says to prepare for a long and difficult war. Well, I think really a sensible thing to be said on this topic is that we are living through unutterable tragedy, and that this is not a time for people to be rushing to take sides and to assume that one side is right and one side is wrong. This morning I was at my first ever service at the synagogue. It was a friend's wedding anniversary, and there was high security outside. It was an extraordinarily moving service. There were people there, obviously, everyone knew people in Israel who'd been affected, some new people who had been killed, and the Jewish community in this country and around the world is heartbroken by what has happened, and Palestinians around the world are heartbroken by what has happened. And honestly, people can march around saying, you should do this, you should do that. There are no good options for anyone in this situation. There are no good options for Israel. What is clear, what is happening in Gaza now is horrific, absolutely horrific. And I'm certainly not one to say or know whether it breaks international law, and I'm very clear for what it's worth. It's not worth very much, but I'm very clear that Israel, anyone fighting war, needs to observe international law on warfare. But I also think it is true that when you are subject to a terrorist attack, you can't just say, fine, we'll let that pass. I think Israel does have the right to fight Hamas, to try to crush Hamas, and there are no easy or good ways of doing that.
But I just want to be absolutely clear that this is a tragedy, and anybody who tries to enhance their reputation or virtue signal or make, personal capital out of this tragedy really should take a long hard look at themselves, because this is not about us. This is about people who are losing their lives and families, and it is an utter tragedy.
Do you also feel that people have watched the big summits in this?
The Israel-Palestine conflict is one of those conflicts in which lots of people who don't really have a dog in the fight take sides in a really quite tawdry way, right? A bit like a football team or a derby. When I was at university over 10 years ago, one of the defining issues of the student union that defined the student union politics was Israel and Palestine. It's utterly absurd, and I think it seems deeply distasteful to see people doing that. This is the sort of ground incursion that we've been waiting for since October 7th. It's been longer in coming than I think some people expected, suggesting that there had been indecision in telling all about what to do. But it's been quite clear that maintaining an indefinite blockade of the Gaza Strip was never going to fight international opinion. And as Christine said, doing nothing was not going to be an option. And so it was always, I think, inevitable that some kind of ground operation against Hamas would take place, which is what's happening now. The Israelis are not calling it an invasion, but they are saying they deploy troops and infantry and that they will be staying in the Strip, which is different to the forward and to go and do it.
Before 2014, but usually it lasts roughly 3 weeks, and then it stops and things settle down, whereas here we're 3 weeks in effectively, but it just seems to be getting worse. Let's just look at the Observer front page, and that is Netanyahu declares a second war of independence as fear for Gazans growing. I think it's worth looking at that picture. Gaza reads and this experience next to minority Gaza yesterday is that the military compartment raged on and the territory went dark, because that's the other issue right now. It is incredibly difficult, and you are hearing interviews and stories to get any kind of information out of Gaza and contact with people there.
Yeah, well, internet has been cut off, so people have no idea whether their relatives are alive or dead. Even the Scottish First Minister doesn't know whether his wife's parents and family are alive or dead. It is a terrible, terrible situation. But to go to your point that the last war lasted about 3 weeks, I think what's different this time is that for Israel, this is an existential war. This is Hamas clearly do not believe in Israel's right to exist, and by chopping the heads off babies and approaching this thing in the way they have approached it, they have made it clear that this is an existential fight. It's an existential fight on both sides, and existential fights are not fought in 3 weeks. And this is already incredibly ugly, and it's going to get uglier. I have no idea how Israel can target Hamas and all those underground tunnels without going in. In the process, people, innocent people, and the vast majority of people in Gaza are innocent, in a way the phrase is irrelevant, but whether they support Hamas or not, we don't know, because Hamas, they don't have a way of protesting against Hamas. But I understand why Netanyahu feels he has no option but to do this. And the result will be many Israeli lives risked as well. There will be many young men and women who will lose their lives in this fight. And, the tragedy just spreads and spreads.
Again, Henry, because Israel is saying it's preparing for a long war, do you think pressure will increase on Western nations and the UK, of course, perhaps change its policies on that?
To an extent, yes, because compared to decades ago, it's now so easy to get frontline footage of how horrifying this operation is going to be. Now, there's no easy way to fight Hamas, right? All of the talk about the rules of war are perfectly valid. Hamas is not a conventional military. It's not marching out into a field and forming up battalions. It is the government of Gaza. It openly uses human shields. So it's going to be absolutely horrifying. And I think that one of Israel's strategic problems, setting aside the ethics of it, is that as this war drags on and those pictures keep coming, there is going to be an increasingly corrosive effect on public opinion in many Western nations. Now, whether that translates to foreign policy remains to be seen. The crucial one is the United States. The United States has historically been a very strong and reliable supporter of Israel. But in the European Union and the United Kingdom, it may well be a little more pressure on British politicians.
Which is always the worry that things can expand and let's look at a more, national look at the impact of what's going on in the Middle East. Let's look at the Sunday Express, pages 4 and 5. growing calls to ban so-called extremist groups in Britain. That, of course, led to there were a few demonstrations around the UK, but the London one by far being the biggest one, estimated roughly 100,000 people. Not overwhelmingly peaceful, but we did see example, we simply saw arrests. So what do you make of it, Christina? That balance between free speech, but obviously tamping down.
I think we have to be very, very careful. And it's funny that the Tories are meant to be the ones who are kind of pro free speech, and they seem at the moment to be the quickest to clamp down on any speech they don't like. Now, clearly, it's a complicated process to draw the line between what is actually legally hate speech and what is just very unpleasant speech that you don't like. And as you said, the majority of people are just heartbroken by what's happening in Gaza and wanting to show solidarity. I think those who are chanting slogans like Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, I think many of them don't actually understand the implications of what they're saying. That what they're saying is Israel has no right to exist, and Jews, having been through a Holocaust, will not have a homeland and should be expelled from their land. I think if they actually grasped the implications of what they were saying, they might be a bit more careful about saying it. But I think we should be very careful about clampdowns. I think they rarely go well. And in the past, my understanding is that the groups that they are talking about banning have not actually reached the legal threshold for banning. So I would be cautious on that.
Because there have been some arrests, but we've also seen tension between the Met Police and the government over this, because of course this isn't the first protest, it's the third in 3 weeks.
Yeah, the Metropolitan Police's argument is that they don't have the legal powers to intervene in the way that politicians are demanding they intervene against things like the Speaker calling for jihad in front of a Muslim Armies Liberate Palestine poster. Now, the government doesn't think that's especially plausible, and if you look at it in the round, this is for all, it's important that we strike a balance between free speech and controlling speech, but this is a country where you can be visited by the police for obnoxious tweeting, right? So it seems very strange that the police can intervene in so many areas, and yet here specifically there is a apparent lacuna in the law. And there's also a concern that the police have actually taken action against pro-Israel counter-protesters on the basis of their own safety, and the concern from the government about that is that basically means if you amass enough potentially violent people in the public square, the police will de facto enforce their will by keeping other people away. Now, I don't know if we necessarily need more law, but I also don't know if new law would be effective on its own, because unless there is a change in the way the police's attitude towards public order policing, currently it's very hands-off compared to, say, France or another country like that. New powers don't do anything. You need the police to be willing to act, and nothing about the police says they will. Precisely. They have been given additional powers, but if you look at it overall, the police do have an awful lot of powers, but they used to be much more muscular in the past. If you think about the way the police handled riots and public order in the 70s and 80s, it's not necessarily a matter of legal power, it's a matter of operational doctrine and command culture, and that can't be changed by politicians overnight.
Forgive me, I'm just going to stress the point again that, of course, the overwhelming number of people in these protests are just horrified about what's going on in Gaza. Right, last bit for now from the Sunday Times. Farmers' crisis over ceasefire intensifies. These farmers had they give an interview that he probably regrets. We probably regrets the phrasing. What do you think this will continue to do to the Labour Party this time?
I think it's bad news for the Labour Party, and it's bad news for Keir Starmer, and I feel sad about that because I think he gave a really superb speech at the Labour Party conference, and I think he was showing more of what he stands for, his vision for the country. And the tragic thing here is, does anyone seriously think that Keir Starmer is in favour of Palestinian children being blown up? Of course he isn't. This is just about the rules of law. And in that LBC interview, he very clearly did get it wrong. And his subsequent explanation was not actually plausible. But I just think all these people who are kind of calling for this and calling for that, do they think that Israel is going to listen to them? Why are they doing it? Because it doesn't help. If they actually want a Labour government to be running this country, the Labour government next time round, actually they would be better off making it less about themselves, I think.
And just you were saying that we were hearing from David Gantz at that news conference, and actually one of the things he said, he's the war cabinet minister, he said we're going to listen to our friends, but then do what is right for us. So, never mind that Keir Starmer is the opposition, I'm just thinking Israelis are not going to listen. Henry, we'll come back to both of you just in a while. But now we are going to go to a quick break. Oh no, we're looking at the Times. Yeah, let me tell you what we're going to be looking at. At the Times, the Sunday Times front page, NHS spent millions on failed AI doctor app that is backed by Matt Hancock. Then we're going to look at that after.
Friday nights are getting even livelier on Sky News. Join me for a different take on the big news stories of the week. You never hope like you will have for them today. For a fresh look at the news, Friday night, with Patterson, here on Sky News.
This November on Sky Sports, it's showtime for sports' greatest entertainers.
Are you ready for it? We are.
So that's Sky Sports, go to sky.com/sports.
You are smart. I need to say something. I am a highly skilled master candidate. What? Possibly is the last wish available now on Sky Cinema.
My lips are my musical instrument. They need to be hydrated. But with that matte finish I love, it's hard. Until now. Avon Hydramatic Lipstick. The world's first matte lipstick with a hydrating core and hyaluronic acid. Avon, embrace your power. Shop with your Avon rep and now find Avon at Superdrug, in selected stores, and online. Little pockets of play can appear anywhere. With Kinder Surprise, even the school run can be a little lesson in fun. Kinder Surprise, a little play means a lot. When I leave my dentist, my mouth feels super clean, making me feel super confident. But the next day it starts to fade. My dentist says it's because my manual toothbrush leaves 50% of bacterial pack behind. So thanks to him, I discovered the Oral-B IO electric toothbrush.
Its dentist-inspired round brush heads surround the teeth, cleaning where manual toothbrushes don't reach, for 100% more plaque removal.
Now I get that dentist clean feeling every single day.
Oral-B, brush like a pro.
Dad, I really want to make a spaceship that fairy wants on, but it's taken ages to learn how. We've got no idea. It's still there.
Drop for drop, fairy lasts up to 2 times longer in cool water than the next best selling brand. We call it Fairy Economy.
I am Hypnocaptain. Recycle your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Don't bin your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Anything with a plug vacuum cable can be recycled. Bag them up and search Recycle Your Electricals to find your local drop-off points. Yeah.
A moment of calm. Brought to you by Twinings. Alive in every drop. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now. I'm the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Conservative Home, Henry Hill. Okay, let's take a look at some more front pages now. Let's go back to the Sunday Times, but a slightly different story before we're looking at the war between Israel and Hamas. Now it's the NHS spending millions on a failed AI doctor app, basically, that Matt Hancock had decided was a good idea. There it is, and it has been winnings on failed AI doctor app backed by Hancock. What do you make of this?
You mean Matt Hancock is associated with something that wasn't entirely successful? Huge story. And well, he had his Matt Hancock app, didn't he? He was the first, wasn't he the first MP who had his first actual app? Perhaps he had introduced that into the NHS. No, here we are, yet another failure from Matt Hancock, and this one involved, I think, about £22 million of taxpayers' money over the last 3 years alone. He was wooed, as were a number of other prominent Tories, I think including Theresa May. I think the lobbyists on behalf of Babylon Health were very effective, persistent and powerful, and managed to convince Matt Hancock that this app would save masses of time and money by having virtual appointments, and of course it has not been successful, and basically the money has gone an enormous loo. So yeah, yet another failure wrapped up by Matt Hancock, and another £22 million of taxpayers' money wasted. Anything to add?
I think that's the one thing I find fascinating about this is the way the NHS, I mean, the government in this country is always terrible. It's basically an ongoing problem. But it was a springboard because basically they got these contracts with the NHS by ruling politicians. And then they used the fact they had these NHS contracts to go around the world and say, look, we're credible. We've got these contracts with this big government agency. And so actually it helped them raise even more money. Obviously, it didn't save the business, but it is interesting the way that actually it wasn't the NHS, was just a one step on the Silicon Valley fundraising ladder.
And Henry, we're running out of time, but just a quick note from you about Sunak's King's speech to open the green divide with Labour that's from on the Observer.
Quick note, I think it's really frustrating that he's framing it this way because the plan for new oil and gas licenses is perfectly sensible. Weaning ourselves off fossil fuels should be about reducing consumption. As long as the world needs it, we should be using that demand domestically. But instead, he's dressing it up as an anti-green measure.
He is pitching himself as the, on behalf of the motorist champion, and it's all a bit pathetic.
Thank you both, and now let's take a quick look at the weather.
Warm memories, wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Unsettled weather will continue across the weekend and into next week. Low pressure approaching the country on Thursday is likely to bring some extremely windy conditions to southern England as well as northern France, but the track of the storm is not yet confirmed. Temperatures will be unremarkable overnight, either cold or mild. The heavy rain pushing north will reach Northern Ireland and Northern England.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Coming up next on Sky News at 11, Israeli forces on the ground in Gaza as Benjamin Netanyahu says the war against Hamas is ended in defense.
Effortless loose curls and waves with Fabulous Wave Secret Air, with auto curl technology for easy curling and a gentle burst of cooling air to help set the curl. Fabulous Wave Secret Air.
Lock in the price for summer 24 and spread the cost with flexible monthly payments. Jet Team Holidays, corporate holidays you can trust.
Vitality gets your health moving forward. And this is how it's done.
They help you get healthier.
And they get you back in the day.
Taking you to the next level.
Always a step ahead.
Because progress only happens when you move forward. And forward feels good. Move forward with vitality.
However these 7 symptoms of heartburn and indigestion feel like to you, all 7 symptoms are caused by stomach acid. So Gaviscon Double Action acts in the stomach to neutralise acid fast and forms a raft to prevent contents from going back up the food pipe for long-lasting relief. The 7 symptoms, think Gaviscon.
Right, what do you call that challenge? That grease don't scare me with Mary Platinum Plus here. Your tough messes aren't that tough at all. So let's make this really interesting and switch from normal to a short cycle.
New Fairy Platinum Plus capsules have a unique short cycle activator that starts to work the instant it hits the water, removing tough nets fast. And switching to short helps you save up to 33% energy per wash.
Happy days.
Fairy Platinum Plus, our best cleaning, even on a short cycle. At Co-op, we know those everyday essentials are important. So now, our members will save more on them every day. Sign up and save more at your local Co-op.
Purchase excess package under cookies.
Password? What? You've forgotten. What was your first cat's middle name? What's your favourite kind of rock?
Okay, Buttercup.
Buttercup 1, 2, 3. Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
It takes a big family to make a great coffee. Big family.
That's right. But not all blood relations. We bonded through our love of beans. Coffee variations. Tell us why it tastes so great. Because we're one big family. It takes a big family to make a great coffee. Mrs. Brooks, you can't get New York. You dine in the best houses. But are you sure? His wife's the star of war of New York society.
Yes, and you'll need to pick a team. The old guard think they can keep out the new people with impunity. Don't worry, I have a plan. Mrs. Russell is even more of a fighter than I had realized. I enjoy competition.
Good, I look forward to it.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock. The headlines this evening. Israel expands its ground operation inside Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu confirms the war against Hamas has now entered a new phase.
This is only the beginning of the road. Our fight inside the Gaza Strip will be long and difficult, but we are prepared for that. This is our second war of independence.
We look at what it means for the families of the hostages still being held in Gaza.
Stop bombing Gaza! Stop bombing Gaza! Stop bombing Gaza!
Plus, tens of thousands of people take to the streets of London calling for a ceasefire. Also tonight, a 3-day ordeal is finally over for the people of Maine as police find the gunman behind America's deadliest mass shooting this year. Plus, more major flooding today and a warning of further rain to come for the rest of the weekend. In sports, South Africa win the Rugby World Cup for a record 4th time. And we're going to take a full look at the front pages in our press briefing at 11:30. Good evening. Israel's war against Hamas could be significantly returned tonight, with ground troops involved in expanded operations inside the Gaza. In an address to the nation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that we have only just begun and told people to prepare for a long war that he called the fight of our lives. Well, here are the latest pictures from Gaza, with explosions visible across the border to the enclave cloaked in darkness. More than 2 million people have effectively been cut off from the outside world after losing communications and internet access after the heaviest night of airstrikes since the conflict began. Well, for the latest on this conflict, our Security and Defense Editor Deborah Hayes has tonight's main report.
Even from a distance, as war rages, the destruction in Gaza is clear. A spectre of devastation. Troops now starting to fight on the ground after 3 weeks of punishing airstrikes. Israel says the goal is to destroy Hamas and rescue dozens of hostages. that Palestinian civilians still living here are paying a terrible price. Addressing the nation, the Prime Minister described this as a war of survival.
Our fight inside the Gaza Strip will be long and difficult, but we are prepared for that. This is our second war of independence. We will fight for the protection of our homeland, and we will fight on the ground, in the air and the sea, and we will eliminate the enemy above the ground and beneath the ground. We will fight and we will win.
The Israeli military released footage of what it's calling the second stage of an offensive that was triggered by a deadly Hamas attack on the 7th of October. Tanks can be seen opening fire. Unlike other raids in recent days, the troops didn't then pull back, but stayed, finding targets for jets and warships to strike.
The ground forces are currently carrying out an important and complex operation. The objectives of this war require a ground operation in order to expose and destroy the enemy. There is no other way than to enter the territory with force.
An unprecedented aerial bombardment of Gaza unfolded on Friday night as the troops. These pictures show how much of the Palestinian enclave had already been reduced to rubble even before the escalation.
We've not been able to see for ourselves the Israeli operation inside Gaza, but from this side of the border, you can hear the intensity of some of the firepower that's being used. We've heard a lot of artillery rounds, there have been bursts of heavy machine gun fire, and also more airstrikes.
Despite Israel's overwhelming military strength, this won't be an easy fight. Hamas will have prepared for the invasion, the troops also holding more than 200 hostages. It means Israel will need to tread carefully as it pushes in. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, Southern Israel.
For this evening, Gaza's health ministry, which is controlled by Hamas, said the number of people killed in the enclave has now reached 7,650. The Sky News team remains inside Gaza, and one of our producers has described how ambulances and rescue workers had to work overnight, despite both power and communication being lost. Adam Parsons has this report.
At night, in darkness, you can see Gaza's isolation, a city cut off from electricity and the internet. And then the sky lights up, illuminated by the explosions that Israel threatened and is now doing. In the light of day, so the revelation of guns. Without an Israeli SIM, mobile phones don't work now, so ambulances are following the sounds of explosions and collapsed buildings. Through social media, this woman displays pictures of the destruction. They have cut off everything, she says, and adds, there isn't a safe place. It's likely her phone works because it is connected to an Israeli network, and using a line that is not sold in Gaza is her explanation. And then she reaches her office and breaks down in tears. This message came from a Sky producer who lives in Gaza.
We couldn't even check out our family in Gaza if they survived this night or they are bombs because cut the communication and cut the telephone lines. It makes the ambulance and the civil defense unable to reach any call for like bombing or people injured or anything. So they don't know anything where to go because no lines at all. So they are working with lines.
Israel has now dropped leaflets telling people to head south, saying the shelters in the north of Gaza are not safe, and that the Gaza City area is now a battlefield. You must, the leaflet says, evacuate immediately. Israel has now started the next phase, aiming, it says, to guarantee its own existence. Attacks on Gaza will become more intense, more focused, perhaps even more devastating. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
Let's get the latest now on the expanded ground operation from our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, who is in Sderot in southern Israel.
I think it's fair to say now, we talked about today, but the invasion is underway now. In numbers, it's slightly different to previous invasions we like into Gaza, but it is underway for certain soldiers of Bimbim. The key is from the government against the completely dismantled Hamas. And to do that, they've got to get right into their tunnel, which is in tunnel, and they've got into their tunnel. Hence, the government is saying this is going to take a very, very long time. They're going to small arms fire tonight, and lots of it, as well as jet strikes and artillery, but that is the reason that this is already being flagged as a very, very long operation, because they've got a lot of Hamas fighters ahead of this, and going into those tunnels is going to be really difficult. So they have to move forward slowly. And of course, the big issue is because the people who are there, they've been told that they need to go to the south, not to return to Gaza City, not to return to the north. But for many of them, some actually not be returning, others on the outside push themselves back to the south. The conditions there are terrible. So it really, really is tough. And as Adam was saying in the report, it's very much to think it's getting even worse in these days.
Earlier, Israel's Prime Minister met the families whose loved ones have been kidnapped by Hamas and vowed to help bring them home. And yet, his decision to intensify bombing and advance the ground operation has raised questions about how successful negotiations for their release are going. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle has this report from Tel Aviv.
This is a national crisis every bit as much as the attacks on the 7th of October were a national tragedy. 229 people have been held in Gaza for 3 weeks, and with no word of whether they're still alive. They are young and old, soldiers and civilians, Israelis and foreigners, and many here hold all of Gaza responsible for their actions.
Release the hostages. Why are you holding them? You want humanitarian aid? You want water to Gaza? You want electricity? Release them. That's it. Simple. Tomorrow you get everything back. Electricity, everything.
In full sight of Israel's Ministry of Defense, whose responsibility is to get the hostages back safely, the permanent vigil is held on the plaza in Tel Aviv. Every face on every poster, there is a family left wondering and worrying when or if they will see each other again. Life in the last 3 weeks for you must have been very difficult.
No life. No sleeping, no drinking, no eating, nothing. There is no life.
Despite rumours in recent days of a possible breakthrough in negotiations to release some of the hostages, there are now reports that Israel thinks Hamas are stringing them along.
Israel is a country that prides itself on never leaving one of its own behind. And so even as the military campaign in Gaza steps up in intensity day by day now, the fate and the well-being of the hostages still being kept there weighs heavily on the minds of the government, the military, and the Israeli people.
Just rescuing the hostages would be a challenge enough in itself. Doing so whilst at the same time trying to eliminate Hamas will be something much greater and much harder than anything Israel has ever tried to do before. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Tel Aviv.
And as Israeli families wait for news of their relatives, so too do the families of those trapped in Gaza. Among them, the First Minister of Scotland, who described the UK government's stance not about the ceasefire as shameful. Our North American correspondent, Inzma Bashir, has been talking to some of his relatives, hoping it would be agonizing.
Every single day we are bombarded. Hundreds of bombs. Thousands of bombs have landed from houses and homes and hospitals, schools and mosques.
Fear in her voice. Zainab, a school teacher from Manchester, stranded in Gaza. She travelled with her in-laws' family to celebrate a wedding just days before the atrocity which reignited this brutal war. But for 3 weeks, all 11 of them have been trying to leave, to come back home, and now the situation is more desperate than ever.
Her signal wasn't strong and then it cut out about 3 p.m. UK time. And since then, I've heard nothing. And the bombing has escalated
As if having your daughter trapped in a war zone wasn't enough, a communication blackout by the Israelis means Lala is left worrying for the worst.
The evening before, she called me 10:30 our time, and she was saying goodnight to me, just reassuring me that she was okay. But I could hear the rockets going overhead, and then she just started to whisper and told me, "Mama, I need to go now." And that was the last time I heard a voice, and I don't know when I'm going to hear from her again.
She shows us the messages just not getting through. It's an agonizing wait.
I don't know what's happening to my daughter. I don't know what's happening to her husband or his family. Did they make it through the night? It's just a nightmare. I can't describe it as a living nightmare.
How much are you missing your daughter?
Very well, is that a question?
And her story resonates. In Scotland, another family waiting for contact, hoping for good news.
Mother-in-law's a retired nurse, father-in-law, a small business owner, a retired small business owner, had nothing to do with us in their too. We haven't heard from them since the intensity of the bombing last night, and it goes without saying, but worth reiterating that we are one of many thousands of families, I suspect, right across the world who are desperately worried about whether or not our loved ones are alive or dead, and I simply don't know the answer to that question.
He may be the Scottish First Minister, but this anguish and agony is a great leveller. Like Lala, many families will be clutching their phones a little tighter, waiting, praying, hoping they hear something very soon. Inzamam Rashid, Sky News, Manchester.
Meanwhile, in London today, tens of thousands of protesters were on the streets calling for a ceasefire. Among the peaceful demonstrations, there were some arrests, including one for the assault of a police officer. As a precaution, police were given extra stop and search powers in 2 London boroughs until midnight. Our current correspondent Martin Brunt is on.
For the organisers, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the day was a huge success. According to them, bigger than last week's protest by 100,000 marchers. Again, they were calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict.
There's completely cut off all communications in Gaza. We have no idea what's happening. It is now darkness, and the people there are being massacred. And the fact that the world leaders are still supporting this, we're calling to end, we're calling for a ceasefire immediately.
What do you think of the events overnight, the escalation? Precious, it's a war crime, and the countries across the world are doing nothing about it. It's inhumane. For the police, relief, only a few arrests and no serious trouble. Violence flared near Downing Street, where marchers encountered 2 unrelated protests. A man was arrested after an assault on a police officer. Near Waterloo, where demonstrators staged a sit-in, a man was arrested after allegedly shouting racist remarks and threats to kill. Police were trying to identify more suspects. 2 women pictured at Trafalgar Square, an allegation of a hate crime.
It's been a delicate balancing act for police, allowing protest and freedom of speech, but promising to clamp down on anybody inciting religious or racial hatred, and knowing that officers are under great scrutiny.
Fireworks were set off near Parliament. A horse leapt up and knocked over a woman, but she wasn't hurt. It's thought this was the biggest ever pro-Palestinian march in the UK. For any such public order event, remarkable there was so little trouble. Later, demonstrators rallied outside Downing Street, condemning the UK government's weapons supplies to Israel and its failure to join them in calls for a ceasefire. Martin Brunt, Sky News, Westminster.
The ordeal is finally over for people in the US state of Maine, where police say a man suspected of killing 18 people in a mass shooting has now been found dead. Robert Card was discovered with a self-inflicted gunshot injury, bringing a close to a 3-day manhunt. Our US correspondent Mark Stone is in the State of Maine in the Southeast District.
Almost exactly 48 hours after a mass shooting broke a community and forced it into lockdown, a trail took police to a recycling centre. A body found, a suspect dead.
I stand here tonight to submit a report that the United States Police have located the body of Robert Cobb in Lisbon. He is dead. I called President Biden to inform him about this news.
Robert Card was found inside one of these trailers at a place he used to work. He was wearing the same clothes he'd been seen in during the shooting spree. He had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and with him, 2 guns.
That particular location was cleared twice previously. The owner of that facility did a great job because he was like, this individual knows the property. He could be tucked in the back of one of these trailers. So the Maine State Police tactical team ultimately were the ones that located the body within one of those trailers.
The location is just a few hundred meters from where his car was abandoned after the shooting. It's 20 minutes drive from the bowling alley and the bar where 18 people died on Wednesday night. Now with the danger over, the lockdown lifted, a community can come together and begin the process of recovery. The news ended 2 days of intense police activity. In pockets of this rural New England community, they've been pulled in different directions as the hunt for Robert Card took new twists. In the end, it brought them back here to a place they had searched before. The discovery represents the end of the beginning for this community because there will be a long road ahead for Lewiston to heal from this. Now, a familiar cycle, a debate about America's gun laws and its mental health challenges will rage and then fade until the next one. Mark Stone, Sky News, in Lewiston, Maine.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has dropped his bid for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. Mr. Pence told the Republican Jewish Coalition's conference in Las Vegas that this is not my time. Although he is suspending his campaign immediately, he says he won't be stopping his move to elect what he calls principled Republican leaders to every office in the land. A 16-year-old girl who activist groups say was attacked by the Iranian morality police for not wearing a hijab has died, according to Iranian state media. Arnita Garavan suffered severe injuries earlier this month, according to human rights organization Bimbim. Authorities blamed her death on a pre-existing medical condition. It comes just over a year since 22-year-old Nasir Bini died in police custody, prompting protests across Iran. Heavy rain has caused severe flooding in Hastings, where the town shopping centre has been evacuated. The East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service said they are helping with the flooding and instructed people to move their cars from the area. This is Sky News. Coming up, Harry Kane scores one of the goals of his career for Bayern Munich.
Growing up with phones isn't easy. EE-Learn has new tools to help for every kid on any network. This is new EE.
Sell your car the motorway way, where dealers compete to give you the best price. Motorway, the way to sell your car.
For over 30 years, we've unlocked the heart of Latin America, bringing you its hidden wonders with award-winning expertise
and a treasury of local knowledge. Experience something extraordinary. Journey Latin America, utterly protected.
What about my car? The legal price shop. One day, one of the owners was like, this business hasn't reached this potential. And the other one's like, we need a bigger piece of the pie. Let's get an online shop with GoDaddy. Look, we can easily build an online store and sell to more customers. It's as easy as, what's the word? Pie. It's so good that now everyone's like, wait, no me? Up the vegan. Take the next step on your business journey with GoDaddy.
When you run a business, great communication is vital.
I just transferred it. I think I just got it off.
Welcome to Hi 3, the business phone that's refreshingly easy to use, packed full of features designed to make your business life simpler, and all backed up by our UK-based support team. Find out more at hihi.co.uk. Hi.
When you love someone, you do anything to protect them. Maybe anything. So you can enjoy the full taste of Mutu tomatoes.
I am Francisco Mutu, and no one else tomatoes as much as I do.
Mutu, one family, one passion, tomatoes.
New year, new us.
You and I have a split up?
On it. We're getting on better since we decided to split up.
Honey, comes out for his unconscious, doesn't it? You know, you regret the things you didn't do.
I need to say something.
I'm pregnant.
Oh, I had a baby very young.
It ruined my life. Mom. Grace got a little spot now with Bimbim.
This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Onside, eh? And if we look around the back, offside. Line that spotted me.
Hello again, South Africa are rugby world champions for a record fourth time. They beat New Zealand with 12 points to 11 in Paris. Also, points came in the first half from the boot of Andre Pollard, who hit 4 penalties. The All Blacks had captain Sam Cane sent off after half an hour for a challenge on Jesse Craig, but managed to score the only try of the game from fullback Bodie Barrett across the line. Despite late pressure from New Zealand, South Africa held on for victories and to their triumphs. 2019, 2007, and 1995. The Premier League Arsenal's Eddie Nketiah scored his first Premier League hat-trick in a 5-0 win over bottom-of-the-table Sheffield United. The striker only came into the side in place of the injured Gabriel Jesus. Fabio Vieira penalty made it 4-0. Full-time hero Tomiyasu added a fifth. The win cut Tottenham's lead at the top of the table back to 2 points. Wolves twice came from a goal down to get a point at home to Newcastle. Callum Wilson put Newcastle ahead midway through the first half after a mistake by Wolves goalkeeper Jose Sarr. Mario Lemina then equalised for the home side after half an hour. Wilson added Newcastle's second from the penalty spot before Hang Chan made it 2-2 to extend their unbeaten run to 5 matches. Newcastle are up to 6th by the Wolves 12th. Taken them 10 games, but Bournemouth had their first Premier League win of the season. Bimbim scored the all-important goal, 2-1 victory over Burnley. Charlie Taylor had put Burnley in front, and Antoine Semenyo equalised before Billing's second half winner. In the lunchtime game, goals from Ethan Kirk and Brian Bruno gave Brentford 2-0 win at Chelsea. The Championship QPR had sacked manager Gareth Ainsworth after their 10th defeat of the season. They lost 2-1 at home to leaders Leicester. Harry Winks scored the winner with his first goal for the club. And Scottish Premiership leaders Celtic are 8 points clear at the top, despite a goalless draw with the Birmingham. St Mirren moved level on points with second place Rangers after a 4-0 win over St Johnstone. Elsewhere, Dundee won 2-0 at Livingston on Motherwell from West County, finished 3-3. Harry Kane has scored some great goals over the course of his career, but none much better than this one. The England captain scored from inside his own half for Bayern Munich in an 8-0 win over Darmstadt. So we had 2 players sent off. Kane went home to complete a hat-trick. Elsewhere, another England player, Jude Bellingham, scored both goals in round group's 2-1 win over rivals Barcelona. He's now scored
13 goals in his first 13 games since the summer move from Bimbim. England have completed the Rugby League Series win over Tonga. They won the second match in the series 14 points to 4. To take an unstable 2-0 lead, Wellington's made Ashton score both England tries. Thrilling game of the Cricket World Cup saw Australia beat New Zealand by 5 runs. Australia made 388 in their innings. Travis Head smashing 109 from 67 balls. And opening stand 175 for David Warner. In reply, New Zealand kept up with run rates. Watching the Vidra hit 116 off 89 balls. And down to this, New Zealand needing 19 to win from the final over and 6 of the last ball. But could only manage a single. It's Australia's fourth straight win in the competition. They remain on course for place in the semi-finals, as do New Zealand, despite that defeat. There's more now on Sky Sports News with that later.
Extra time? Good, because these things are only 5 seconds off.
Coming up next, the press preview, including this story on the front of the Sunday Telegraph. The headline, Israel sends in elite troops for long war. When we come back, I'll be joined by the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Conservative Home, Bimbim.
Just back from holiday, it's been so cold and gray.
You never got a suitcase would smell that bad. But it's okay. Dad's got bold platinum with extra freshness. With a quick sniff of citrus and white verbena, she's off to the pool again. New bold platinum with extra freshness. Always keep away from children.
Amazon is a company that does focus on everyone's development and learning. I received funding for my education and training, and that allowed me the opportunities to develop both professionally and personally. I've grown from a HR assistant to a HR partner. It's great to work for a company that allows me to improve my knowledge to learn new areas, right?
Vitality gets your health moving forward. And this is how it's done. Take up you get healthier. And I get you in the day. Taking you to the next level. It's a step ahead. Because progress only happens when you move forward. And forward feels good. Move forward with Vitality.
I keep my home fresh with Febreze Evolution plugin, and I use this. Febreze has smart programming to digitally control how much scent is released, so you never stop noticing freshness for up to 90 days. Does mine have smart programming? Febreze also has a refill reminder light, so I never miss a bit of freshness. Wow, it's so fresh! Febreze Evolution.
Wrap yourself in cozy scents with the Febreze Limited Winter Edition.
Can Ariel take on the wash cold challenge? Turn down and see. Tough stains are harder to remove in a cold wash. Ariel pods are rated best on stains by Which for brilliant clean, even on cold. And if you tend to wash colder, you can save up to 60% on your washing machine energy cost. Wash colder with Ariel, rated best on stains by Which. Try with Hot Point, brilliant results even on a cold wash. Always keep away from children.
Anyway, cutbacks, initial thoughts, downsizing. I could make do with this office here, I suppose, but that big space downstairs, a bit overindulgent nowadays, isn't it?
Like downstairs, do you mean closing the actual branch?
Mm-hmm.
The nationwide,
We're not nationwide, are we? We're nothing like that. Like my ex-wife.
Unlike the big banks, we are not closing our branches. Nationwide, a good way to go.
Manchester is built on style and spirit. From the Liverpool control by nowhere else. United gets behind. This weekend, would it be red or blue? To upgrade to the Manchester Derby, visit sky.com/sports.
This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, a reminder of our top stories. Israel's Prime Minister has addressed his nation to say his war against Hamas has now entered a new stage with an expanded ground operation in Gaza, which he says will be long and difficult. Thousands of protesters have marched through London calling for a ceasefire in Gaza to allow in humanitarian aid. And in May, police have found the body of the gunman responsible for America's deadliest mass shooting this year. Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's reading the headlines with the journalist and author, Christina Patterson, and the deputy editor of Conservative Code, Mary Hill. Welcome both. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. The Observer leads with growing fears for people in Gaza after tonight's speech by the Israeli Prime Minister, in which he called the war with Hamas his country's second war of independence. The Times too leads with those remarks by Benjamin Netanyahu. In short victory, Telegraph says Israel is sending in elite troops prepared for a long war. While the Sun quotes Israeli military chiefs talking about the intensity of the attacks on Gaza taking place at the moment, with this headline, the earth shook. And here at home, the Express reports that the Prime Minister is under increasing pressure to ban what it calls extremist groups stirring up hatred at pro-Palestinian marches. The Mirror has a story about a government minister appearing in public with the suspended Tory MP, Peter Graham. And the Sunday People leads with former Health Secretary Matt Hancock and remarks he's made about the COVID-19 pandemic on a reality TV show. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the program, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. As I mentioned, we are joined tonight by the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Conservative Code, Henry Hill. Thank you so much, you both, for being with us. Okay, well, it's not surprising the story that dominates all the papers. Let's start with the Sun. It's quite a dramatic picture, as they all are. And there it is, the earth shook, mentioning that basically we are seeing the biggest bombardment yet. Israel hit Gaza with its biggest bombardment yet yesterday, as troops launched a new phase of the war. So we had that news conference just a few hours ago with the Israeli Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and War Cabinet, and Minister basically highlighting the next phase of the war is going to be Palestine.
Yeah, well, this is horrific and unfortunately, tragically, it is likely to continue to be horrific. I think if only we could undo the events of the last 3 weeks, and but we are here, and Israel is not going to. It's not going to happen. I mean, maybe there will be a humanitarian pause. People are choosing their language very carefully because it is interpreted that if you call for a ceasefire, you are saying, in effect, that Israel does not have the right to respond to Hamas. And that seems to me quite a thing to say when essentially terrorists have broken in, chopped the head off babies, raped women, and taken Holocaust survivors as hostages. What are you meant to do? Absolutely nothing. I think that Israel clearly feels that it has no option but to try to crush Hamas. The only way it can do that is to go into Gaza and into the tunnels and destroy the tunnels and destroy Hamas targets. And tragically, Hamas embeds its targets with civilians, with hospitals, with schools, and in those tunnels. So Israel feels it has no choice, but what we are seeing unfold on our screens and hearing about is just horror that is almost unimaginable, except that it is actually happening. And we don't know how long this will last. Israel sees this as an existential threat because Hamas does not think Israel has a right to exist. But clearly Israel is going to continue with this until it feels it has crushed Hamas. So the tragedy will continue
Henry, if you look at the Sunday Telegraph front page, it says Israel sends in elite troops for the long war, and that is something that we heard from Benjamin Netanyahu at the news conference earlier. He basically warned about a prolonged campaign, long and difficult war, pretty much, I guess, preparing both the Israeli public and the international community, because I think there is perhaps a slight move away. There's still support for Israel, but the pictures that are coming out, when they were still coming out of Gaza, are swaying public opinion somehow.
Yeah, I mean, the waging war in the 21st century is incredibly difficult because the horror of war is now, until very recently, very easier than ever before to put in front of people. You know, every phone is a camera. So yes, absolutely, and it's also a signal from the Israeli government, I think, about what Western nations should expect. Because previously, when Israel has gone into Gaza after it withdrew from its occupation, it's been a targeted strike. You know, they might go in for a couple of weeks, they might go in even just for a day, take out some targets and then leave. And I think what's clear is that Israel has decided that leaving Hamas in control of Gaza, where it is the government, is no longer an option, which means that these Israeli troops are going in and there is no timeline for when they will leave, which is a big change in Israeli strategy.
I mean, even in the other escalations that we've seen, you know, it's basically unavoidable not to hurt civilians, and even in the previous escalations, you would see more than 1,000 civilians in Gaza. And it's worth pointing out that we're not really getting any pictures out of Gaza anymore because there's a communication, a blackout, and the humanitarian situation there is dire. And I guess that's one of the reasons why it's felt so keen in a lot of places in the world, including the UK. So let's look at the Sunday Times, which has a story. Obviously, it has the headline about the war, but then you can see Starmer's crisis over ceasefire intensifies. And Christina, this shows how events in the Middle East start having a repercussion here, and I guess particularly felt by the Labour Party.
Absolutely, and I think we should not forget that this is exactly what Hamas wanted. It wanted to create as much impact as it could, and it has done a fantastic job at that because it has spread anger, unrest, distress. Did Hamas seriously not think that Israel was going to be fighting back and attacking innocent Palestinians? I mean, of course it knew what would happen, and this is spreading. Countries are going to be divided now, and there may actually, there is a serious risk of war spreading. But Keir Starmer's particular challenge is that the Labour Party traditionally has been very strong supporters of the rights of the Palestinians. We should all be supporters of the rights of Palestinians. We should be supporters of Israelis to live peacefully and of Palestinians to live peacefully, and of a political solution that brings peace to both of those nations and peoples. But for Sir Keir Starmer, there is a real challenge because he has been working to detoxify the party of its perceived anti-Semitism under Jeremy Corbyn, and he has done a very good job on that front. And although I absolutely understand why anyone would want to call for a ceasefire, or a humanitarian cause, whatever you call it, if you call for a ceasefire, that is regarded as saying that Israel does not have the right to respond to Hamas. And that, I can see, is not a line that he can afford to take, not if he wants to be in government, because you have to support a country's right to respond to the kind of aggression that Israel has just seen, even if the results are horrific, and they are horrific. So I think this is just very sad for the Labour Party as well. And I think probably he does need to allow people a little bit of freedom to say what they feel they need to say, to try to contain it, because otherwise it will just turn into yet another fight, and the Labour Party doesn't need a fight at the moment.
But this feels like more than another fight. I think there's people that feel very strongly about what's happening in Gaza right now. How do you think that Keir Starmer, I mean, he has kind of backtracked from comments he made in that infamous LBC interview, but what do you think he could do to try to pacify some of the feelings of his party, although a lot of people have resigned?
Oh yeah, I don't know if even pacification is the correct strategy. The paper says that there are 12 members of the Shadow Front bench who have defied the leader's policy on this issue. It's a huge challenge to the authority and leadership. We have earlier reports that up to 5 members of the Shadow Cabinet are on resignation watch.
And there are several seats, I think maybe up to more than 20 seats where the Muslim vote could be crucial to Labour's fortunes in that seat. So it is a huge issue for Starmer. On the other hand, he's a year out from the general election. This is the kind of thing where he has been really trying to project a different image of Labour to the image that we saw during the Jeremy Corbyn era. It was driven by the internal dissent. So he might want to try and calm it down. But on the other hand, he can't leave Britain's foreign policy, which will be probably his responsibility in a year's time, in the hands of that wing of the Labour Party. He has to be able to set his own course. So it's very difficult to see what he can do. Does he back down and risk looking weak? Does he crack down and actually say, no, this is my line, I am the leader? You've got a 20-point lead in the polls. He has some scope to do that. I don't know if there's an easy way out for him at this point.
And yet, for the third week now, we have seen thousands and thousands, in one of the restaurants, 100,000 people today on the streets of London, the third consecutive week, people calling for a ceasefire. Let me just pull up Sunday Express pages 4 and 5. Now, we had our own report, obviously, on this demonstrations, and I was using it overwhelmingly. It was peaceful people horrified by the images that were coming out of Gaza when they still were, and calling for a ceasefire. Slightly different line here, going forced to ban extremist groups in Britain. There were some arrests, and it's always that balance, isn't it, between freedom of speech, of course, but trying to curb what is called hate speech. What do you make of it, Christina? Is it a difficult balance to strike?
I think it is a difficult balance to strike, and of course I absolutely understand why people are taking to the streets to want to speak, to express their anguish over what is happening. And I think we need to remember that Jews in this country, and of course in Israel and throughout the world, are living with anguish at the moment, and so are Palestinians. It's just an agonizing situation. And of course, people should have the right to express that publicly. What becomes more difficult is when that right turns into essentially a call for Israel's non-existence. For example, when people say Palestine shall be free from the Gate of Israel, that means that Israel does not have the right to exist. And that is a very, very inflammatory thing to say. In fact, for people who have endured the Holocaust, it is more than inflammatory. And so I think this is really, really complicated territory. The other day when we saw those young women with photos of the paratroopers who had gone in, who had slaughtered innocent Israelis and chopped the heads of babies, for women to be wandering the streets of London supporting them, that is really not great. I don't think no one would, of course, defend that. It's worth mentioning that, of course, the death rate in Gaza keeps on growing. I think now we're looking at 7,700 people. That comes from the health ministry, which is controlled by Hamas, but a lot of the NGOs at the UN are pretty much backing up that figure. It's hard to know an exact number, but that is why we are continuing to see so many people that come out to try to stop the horror, as they see that's ongoing now. But what do you make of the powers that this has, and I guess the tension we've seen between the Met and the government?
So the Met's argument is that it doesn't have the powers necessary to step in when, for example, somebody is calling for a jihad in front of a battle and saying Muslim armies invade Palestine. It's a fairly unambiguous case of calling for the military elimination of the state of Israel. The government argues that that's implausible because actually the police, when it comes to policing offensive speech, do have sweeping powers. You can get a knock on your door in this country and tweet, particularly abrasively. But there is no obvious remedy to that. Historically, we have taken a more liberal line than many other countries on such issues. With Syria, for example, is illegal in this country, it's banned in a lot of other places, and there may be scope to change that. The other thing that has been argued is that actually to date, British counter-extremism law has been too focused specifically on counter-terrorism and has not accounted for groups which do not actively perpetrate or promote terrorism, but do promote hateful views.
Christina Henry, we're going to have to leave it there for now. We will, of course, look at more of the stories in today's papers, or tomorrow's papers, rather. Coming up, Rishi Sunak is set to announce pro-car policies in his speech on the road of Britain and Green divide with Labour, as seen in The Observer.
Mrs. Russell is playing with matches. You seem to have won the first round. I intend to win the war.
This November on Sky Sports, It's showtime for sports' greatest entertainers.
We are.
To add Sky Sports, go to sky.com/sports.
New year, new us. I need to say something.
I'm pregnant.
When you love someone, you do anything to protect them. Really, anything. So you can enjoy the full taste of Multi tomatoes.
I am Francisco Multi, and no one loves tomatoes as much as I do.
Multi, one family, one passion, tomatoes.
Let customers pay quickly with online invoice payments in Xero.
Yes.
To keep your cash flow flowing, search Xero with an S.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
When I leave my dentist, my mouth feels super clean, making me feel super confident. But the next day it starts to fade. My dentist says it's because my manual toothbrush leaves 50% of bacterial plaque behind. So thanks to him, I discovered the Oral-B IO electric toothbrush.
Its dentist-inspired round brush head surrounds teeth cleaning where manual toothbrushes don't reach for 100% more plaque removal.
Now I get that dentist clean feeling every single day.
Oral-B, brush like a pro.
This is Brian.
Hi.
It's made lunch for us.
How do you like it?
Bon appetit.
Oh, that's still very good.
It doesn't bring this homemade to Italy. It tastes just like Mama's.
You know it looks like Mama's. It's a family recipe.
Let's keep this between us.
La Famiglia Rana, Italy's favorite pasta. Every small step counts towards a big leap forward. Every hand up for a smarter solution. Every jump that raises the bar. Every design that defies convention. Every finish line that turns into a starting line. And every charge towards a better tomorrow counts. Toyota, let's go beyond. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. I'm joined by journalist and author Christina Patterson and the deputy editor of Conservative Home, Henry Hales. Thank you very much for being with us. Okay, let's take a look at more of the papers. Let's bring the Sunday Mirror, which does still have a Gaza on its front page, but isn't splashing on it. What's splashing on is Westminster exclusive, Tory minister, and the sex bully MP. Henry, what's that about?
So the Mirror is presenting it as a challenge to Rishi Sunak's leadership because Tom Place's Minister of Consumer Campaigning with Peter Bowden, who has just been suspended from Parliament for sexual misconduct allegations. In fact, essentially, Tom Place's is Peter Bowden's protege, their constituency neighbours. They have a long personal association in the pro-Brexit movement. That's what this is. I don't think there is a wider wellspring of support for Peter Bowden. This is the one.
How damaging is it?
I mean, it obviously doesn't help having Peter Bowden on the front page. It's another sleaze story, and Rishi Sunak has been trying really hard to avoid doing what Boris Johnson did, which is he seems to be playing with the rules when it comes to parliamentary procedure. He's got to be white and white on that, so it won't help. But I don't think there's going to be a run of these stories. This is a very complex glove thing.
Okay. Let's have a look at the Observer then, and the story here. Sunak King's speech to open a green divide with Labour. And of course, Sunak already, I guess, ruffled feathers with some people when he pushed back on the net zero goals not that long ago. What do you make of this development?
Well, I make of this development the fact that Sunak doesn't seem to be learning from the opinion polls, because in response to
the Boris Johnson seat, the by-election, where there was a clear ULEZ dissatisfaction and story, Rishi Sunak seemed to conclude that the correct thing to do was to become the motorist champion, to be anti-green, which is a slightly wild flip-flop. And he now seems to think this is some kind of path back to power, or perhaps he's just desperately trying all kinds of different things, which is how everything he does at the moment
Well,
is coming across.
let's just explain actually. So Rishi Sunak's government will use next week's King's Speech to advance expansion of North Sea oil and gas exploration, as well as pro-park policies in the hope of opening up a clear divide over the green agenda with Labour. Do you think there is going to have a massive divide?
I mean, it will open up a divide, certainly. I think there's really two elements to this. The oil and gas thing, I think, is really unfortunate, as I said before, that that's been lumped into an anti-green measure, because having oil and gas supply domestically for as long as we need it is a good thing. The more important thing is the driving stuff. There's a load of, he's expected to do a load of pro-car policies, so-called, and that includes, even after cancelling HS2, we're hearing there's more anti-rail stuff coming. He's maybe going to try and pare back East-West Rail, replace that with a road. He's desperately still trying to avoid HS2 getting to Euston, so it will open up a big divide between the parties. I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't suspect so, but I might be wrong.
It isn't, because in the polls, I know that people say, obviously everybody is doing elections there, but even so, I don't think he's tapping into the great groundswell of opinion on this front.
Depends on the policies to an extent. Some of the granular kind of stuff could be helpful, but the big picture stuff, especially East-West Rail and stuff, that would be
Okay, 45 seconds left for the Sunday Times in this story. NHS spent millions on failed AI doctor app. It's bad, right?
I mean, we have, was it 7.7 million people on the waiting list for the NHS at the moment? And meanwhile, Matt Hancock has managed to use it to spaff, I think that was the word that Boris Johnson used repeatedly, to spaff 22 million of taxpayers' money on an app that he was seduced into going for, this Babylon Health app, which doesn't work, basically. So yet another Matt Hancock thing.
With the list that long, you can see why ministers would be desperate for an app that would help out, but it's once again British procurement is terrible. Ministers will battle this by Silicon Valley.
Henry Hill, Christina Patterson, thank you both for sharing your views with us and both for the talks. Let's take a look at the weather now.
Warm memories, wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Unsettled weather will continue across the weekend and into next week. Low pressure approaching the country on Thursday is likely to bring some extremely windy conditions to southern England, as well as northern France, but the track of the storm is not yet confirmed. Temperatures will be unremarkable overnight, with a cool or mild, but heavy rain will push north and will reach Northern Ireland and Northern Italy.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
And coming up next on Sky News, the latest from Gaza after Israel expanded its ground operations inside the enclave, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the war against Hamas has entered a new phase.
Dad, I really want to make a spaceship with that fairy bottle, but it's taken ages to run out. We've got loads now. It's still good.
Drop for drop, Fairy lasts up to 2 times longer in cooling water than the next best-selling brand. We call it Fairy Economy. And SCS is the October Offer Fest. Pay just £10 a month for a sofa you'd love this weekend. Order the Hoxton sofa now for only $360 and you can still get cosy before Christmas. Or the Aurora, also $360, both just £10 a month, but you spread the cost over 3 years, interest-free. Offer ends 30th of October. SCS, helping create the home you love. Formula One has 500 million fans, and Salesforce helps them turn all that data into a single view of each one. Like Grace. Grace is a super fan with a lot of favorites. Formula One can track all that data in real time to give her the perfect fan moment at the perfect time.
There you go. Which makes Grace feel, wow. This is Sky Glass, the TV that can find anything using just your voice. Really? Yeah, watch this. Just say Margot Robbie, and there she is. It searches all your apps and channels at once.
What? I just have to say it.
Exactly.
What if you don't know what you're about?
But we only want it to be funny. Just say, find me comedy. You can find anything. No problem. Look, there's loads to choose from.
That's smart.
No, it's smarter. Sky Glass, smarter than a smart TV.
30 years ago, Dyson created a vacuum that didn't lose suction. Then, with new digital motors, they pioneered lightweight cordless machines with a detangling brush bar to remove pet hair and battery technology for whole home cleaners. Their latest innovation even reveals hidden dust. In fact, it's their most powerful cordless vacuum. So if you want something that works like a Dyson, it has to be a Dyson. Find the right cordless vacuum for you. Payment options available at Dyson. Lots of us are now doing fuller, less frequent loads to save energy. The longer you leave it, the more stains dry and more odours go around. Introducing Aerial Platinum, built-in stain removers. Hot first, laundry second, to remove tough stains you put on cotton. So even fuller loads will be brilliantly clean and smell fantastically fresh. New Aerial Platinum, rated best on stains by Rich, always keep away from trouble.
I received funding from Amazon for my education and training, and that allowed me the opportunity to develop both professionally and personally.
Mrs. Russell, you conquered New York. You dined in the best houses, but I'm sure his wives just started a war with New York society.
Yes, and you'll need to pick a team. The old guard think they can give out the new people with impunity. Don't worry, I have time. Mrs. Russell is even more of a fighter than I had realized. I enjoy competition. Good, I look forward to it.
This is Sky News, the headlines. Israel's ground operation inside Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu confirms the war against Hamas has now entered a new phase.
This is only the beginning of the road. Our fight inside the Gaza Strip will be long and difficult, but we are prepared for that. This is our second war of independence.
We'll take a look at what it means for the families of the hostages still being held in Gaza.
Stop bombing Gaza! Stop bombing Gaza! Stop bombing Gaza!
Plus, tens of thousands of people take to the streets of London calling for a ceasefire. Also, a 3-day ordeal is finally over for the people of Maine as police find the gunman behind America's deadliest mass shooting this year. And more significant flooding and a warning of further rain to come. And in sports, South Africa win the Rugby World Cup for a record 4th time. Hey, good morning. Israel's war against Hamas has taken a significant new turn with troops involved on the ground and expanded operations inside the Gaza Strip. In an address to the nation, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "We have only just begun," and told people to prepare for a long war that he called the fight of our lives. Well, here are the latest pictures from Gaza, with explosions visible across the border to the enclave clothed in darkness. More than 2 million people have effectively been cut off from the outside world after losing communications and internet access after the heaviest waves of airstrikes since the conflict began. Our security and defense editor Deborah Haynes has our main report from Sderot near the Israel-Gaza border.
Even from a distance, as war rages, the destruction in Gaza is clear. A spectre of devastation. Troops now starting to fight on the ground after 3 weeks of punishing airstrikes. Israel says the goal is to destroy Hamas and rescue dozens of hostages. but Palestinian civilians still living here are paying a terrible price. Addressing the nation, the Prime Minister described this as a war of survival.
Our fight inside the Gaza Strip will be long and difficult, but we are prepared for that. This is our second war of independence. We will fight for the protection of our homeland, and we will fight on the ground, in the air and the sea, and we will eliminate the enemy above the ground and beneath the ground. We will fight and we will win.
The Israeli military released footage of what it's calling the second stage of an offensive that was triggered by a deadly Hamas attack on the 7th of October. Tanks can be seen opening fire. Unlike other raids in recent days, the troops didn't then pull back, but stayed, finding targets for jets and warships to strike.
The ground forces are currently carrying out an logistic and complex operation. The objective of this war require a ground operation in order to expose and destroy the enemy. There is no other way than to enter the territory with force.
An unprecedented aerial bombardment of Gaza unfolded on Friday night as the troops went in. It knocked out most internet and mobile phone services. These pictures show how much of the Palestinian enclave had already been reduced to rubble even before the escalation. We've not been able to see for ourselves the Israeli operation inside Gaza, but from this side of the border, you can hear the intensity of some of the firepower that's being used. We've heard a lot of artillery rounds, there have been bursts of heavy machine gun fire, and also more airstrikes. Despite Israel's overwhelming military strength, this won't be an easy fight. Hamas will have prepared for the invasion. The troops also holding more than 200 hostages. It means Israel will need to tread carefully as it pushes in. Deborah Hayes, Sky News, Southern Israel.
Gaza's health ministry, which is controlled by Hamas, says the number of people killed in the enclave has now reached 7,650. The Sky News team remains inside the enclave. One of our producers has described how ambulances and rescue workers had to work overnight despite both power and communications being lost. Alan Parsons has this report.
At night, in darkness, you can see Gaza's isolation, the city cut off from electricity and the internet. And then the sky lights up, illuminated by the explosions that Israel threatened and is now doing. In the light of day, so the revelation of damage. Without an Israeli SIM, mobile phones don't work now, so ambulances are following the sounds of explosions and collapsed buildings. Through social media, this woman displays pictures of the destruction. They have cut off everything, she says, and there isn't a safe place. It's likely her phone works because it is connected to an Israeli network. And using a line that is not sold in Gaza is her explanation. And then she pictures her office and breaks down the stairs. This message came from a Sky producer who lives in Gaza.
We couldn't even check out our family in Gaza if they survived this night or their homes because cut the communication and cut the telephone lines. It makes the ambulance and the civil defense unable to reach any call for like medic or people injured or anything. They don't know anything where to go because no lines at all. So they are working blindly.
Israel has now dropped leaflets telling people to head south, saying the shelters in the north of Gaza are not safe, and that the Gaza city area is now a battlefield. You must, the leaflet says, evacuate immediately. Israel has now started the next phase, aiming, it says, to guarantee its own existence. Attacks on Gaza will become more intense, more focused, perhaps even more devastating. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
Let's get the latest on the expanded ground operation from our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey, who's in Surat in southern Israel.
I think it's fair to say now, we can talk about the days only, but this invasion is underway now. The numbers, it's slightly different to previous incursions, invasions, if you like, into Gaza, but it is underway for certain, and soldiers have gone in. The key is from the government, it wants to completely dismantle Hamas. And to do that, they've got to get right into where they hide, which is in tunnels, and they've got to get into those tunnels. Hence, the government is saying this is going to take a very, very long time. There is small arms fire tonight, and lots of it, as well as jet strikes and artillery, as you would expect. But that has been the reason that this has already been flagged as a very, very long operation, because they've got a lot of Hamas fighters ahead of them, and going into those tunnels is going to be really difficult. So they're just going to have to move forward slowly. And of course, the big issue is just the sheer volume of people who are there. They're being told that they need to go to the south, not to return to Gaza City, not to return to the north. But for many of them, some have started returning, others have now tried to push themselves back to the south, but the conditions there are terrible. So it really, really is tough. And as Adam was saying in his report, it's very likely things are going to get even worse in the coming days, not better.
Stuart Ramsey there, our chief correspondent in southern Israel. Earlier, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had met the families whose loved ones were kidnapped by Hamas and vowed to help bring them home. And yet, his decision to intensify bombing and advance the ground operation has raised questions about how successfully negotiations for their release are going. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle has this report now from Tel Aviv.
This is a national crisis every bit as much as the attacks on the 7th of October were a national tragedy. 229 people have been held in Gaza for 3 weeks, and with no word of whether they're still alive. They are young and old, soldiers and civilians, Israelis and foreigners, and many here hold all of Gaza responsible for their absence.
Release the hostages. Why are you holding them? You want humanitarian aid? You want water to Gaza? You want electricity? Release them. That's it. Simple. Tomorrow you'll get everything back. Electricity, everything.
In full sight of Israel's Ministry of Defense, whose responsibility it is to get the hostages back safely, the permanent vigil is held on the plaza in Tel Aviv. Every face on every poster, there is a family left wondering and worrying when or if they will see each other again.
Life in the last 3 weeks for you must have been very difficult indeed, I imagine.
No life. No sleeping, no drinking, no eating, nothing. There is no life.
Despite rumours in recent days of a possible breakthrough negotiations to release some of the hostages, there are now reports that Israel thinks Hamas are stringing them along.
Israel is a country that prides itself on never leaving one of its own behind. And so even as the military campaign in Gaza steps up in intensity day by day now, the fate and the well-being of the hostages still being kept there weighs heavily on the minds of the government, the military, and the Israeli people.
Just rescuing the hostages would be a challenge enough in itself. Doing so whilst at the same time trying to eliminate Hamas will be something much greater and much harder than anything Israel has ever tried to do before. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Tel Aviv.
As Israeli families wait for the news on their relatives, so too do the families of those trapped in Gaza. Among them, the First Minister of Scotland, who described the UK government's stance not to back a ceasefire as shameful. Our North of England correspondent Islam Rashid has been talking to some of those relatives coping with the agonising wait.
Every single day we are bombarded with hundreds of bombs. Thousands of bombs have landed in houses and homes and hospitals, schools and mosques.
Fear in her voice, Zainab, a school teacher from Manchester, stranded in Gaza. She travelled with her in-laws' family to celebrate a wedding just days before the atrocity which reignited this brutal war. But for 3 weeks, all 11 of them have been trying to leave, to come back home, and now the situation is more desperate than ever.
The signal wasn't strong and then it cut out about 3 p.m. UK time. And since then, I've heard nothing. The bombing has escalated
As if having your daughter trapped in a war zone wasn't enough, a communication blackout by the Israelis means Lala is left worrying for the worst.
The evening before, she called me at 10:30 our time, and she was saying goodnight to me, just reassuring me that she was okay. But I could hear the rockets going overhead, and then she just started to whisper and told me, "Mama, I need to go now." And that was the last time I heard her voice, and I don't know when I'm going to hear from her again.
She shows us the messages just not getting through. It's an agonizing wait.
I don't know what's happening to my daughter. I don't know what's happening to her husband or his family. Because they make it through the night. It's just a nightmare, really. I can't describe it better. It's just a living nightmare.
How much are you missing of your daughter?
And her story resonates. In Scotland, another family waiting for contact, hoping for good news.
Mother-in-law's a retired nurse, father-in-law, a small business owner, retired small business owner, had nothing to do with the accident there too. We haven't heard from them since the intensity of the bombing last night, and it goes without saying, but worth reiterating that we are one of many thousands of families, I suspect, right across the world who are desperately worried about whether or not our loved ones are alive or dead, and I simply don't know the answer to that question.
He may be the Scottish First Minister, but this anguish and agony is a great leveller. Like Lala, many families will be clutching their phones a little tighter, waiting, praying, hoping they hear something very soon. Inzamam Rashid, Sky News, Manchester.
In London earlier, tens of thousands of protesters were on the streets calling for a ceasefire. Among the peaceful demonstrations there were also arrests, including one for the assault of a police officer. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt has this report.
For the organisers, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the day was a huge success. According to them, bigger than last week's protest by 100,000 marchers. Again, they were calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict.
They've completely cut off all communications in Gaza. We have no idea what's happening. It is now darkness, and the people there are being massacred. And the fact that the world leaders are still supporting this, we call it to end. We call it for a ceasefire immediately.
What do you think of events overnight, the escalation? Precious, it's a war crime, and the countries across the world are doing nothing about it. It's inhumane.
For the police, relief. Only a few arrests and no serious trouble. Violence flared near Downing Street, where marchers encountered two unrelated protests. A man was arrested after an assault on a police officer. Near Waterloo, where demonstrators staged a sit-in, a man was arrested after allegedly shouting racist remarks and threats to kill. Police were trying to identify more suspects. Two women pictured at Trafalgar Square, an allegation of a hate crime.
It's been a delicate balancing act for police, allowing protest and freedom of speech, but promising to clamp down on anybody inciting religious or racial hatred, and knowing that officers are under great scrutiny.
Fireworks were set off near Parliament. A horse leapt up and knocked over a woman, but she wasn't hurt. It's thought this was the biggest ever pro-Palestinian march in the UK. For any such public order event, remarkable there was so little trouble. Later, demonstrators rallied outside Downing Street, condemning the UK government's weapons supplies to Israel and its failure to join them in calls for a ceasefire. Martin Brunt, Sky News, Westminster.
The bad news, the ordeal is finally over for people in the US state of Maine, where police say a man suspected of killing 18 people in a mass shooting has now been found dead. Robert Card was discovered with a self-inflicted gunshot injury, bringing to a close a 3-day manhunt. Our US correspondent Mark Stone is in the States and sent his special report.
Almost Exactly 48 hours after a mass shooting broke a community and forced it into lockdown, a trail took police to a recycling centre. A body found, a suspect dead.
I stand here tonight to simply report that the United States Police have located the body of Robert Cox in Lisbon. He is dead. I called President Biden to inform him about this news.
Robert Card was found inside one of these trailers at a place he used to work. He was wearing the same clothes he'd been seen in during the shooting spree. He had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and with him, 2 guns.
That particular location was cleared twice previously. The owner of that facility did a great job because he was like, this individual knows the property. He could be tucked in the back of one of these trailers. So the Maine State Police tactical team ultimately were the ones that located the body within one of those trailers.
The location is just a few hundred meters from where his car was abandoned after the shooting. It's 20 minutes drive from the bowling alley and the bar where 18 people died on Wednesday night. Now, with the danger over, the lockdown lifted, a community can come together and begin the process of recovery. The news ended 2 days of intense police activity. In pockets of this rural New England community, they've been pulled in different directions as the hunt for Robert Card took new twists.
In the end, it brought them back here to a place they had searched before. The discovery represents the end of the beginning for this community because there will be a long road ahead for Lewiston to heal from this.
Now, a familiar cycle, a debate about America's gun laws and its mental health challenges will rage and then fade until the next one. Mark Stone, Sky News in Lewiston, Maine.
Watching Sky News coming up, Harry Kane scores one of the goals of his career for Bimbim.
Friday nights are getting even livelier on Sky News. Join me for a different take on the big news stories of the week. Whenever looking for a fresh look at the news Friday night with Patterson here on Sky News.
So, what makes a Fox's chocolatey so fabulous? Crumbly shortcake, rich indulgent chocolate, or the rather generous covering? Let's have another one, just to make sure. Fox's chocolatey. How fabulous, how Foxes.
With our super sales pack, it's Wayday. Discover floor at £359. Shop Wayday from October 27th at wayfair.co.uk. It's your very last chance to win this house plus £100,000. But you must enter by midnight tonight. Wayfair.co.uk.
I love it when I can dry my clothes outside. But the weather doesn't always cooperate. Very adorable fabric softener. Makes our washing as fresh as if it's been dried outside, even when drying inside. That outdoor freshness. And still so soft, even next to sensitive skin. Very adorable, very soft, and fresh as if dried outside.
Tide understands businesses. It's all we do.
I get updates any time a client has made an invoice payment. I can't stress how easy it is to use.
Sign up for a Tide business account today.
You can't play here!
Come on.
We rise by lifting each other. Kenko, made to uplift.
Manchester, saving on style and spirit. Okay, walk and talk like nowhere else. United, yes, united. This weekend, would it be red or blue? To upgrade to the Manchester Derby, visit sky.com/sports.
Welcome back. The former US Vice President Mike Pence has dropped his bid for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. Mr. Pence told the Republican Jewish Coalition's conference in Las Vegas that this is not my time, though he's suspending his campaign immediately.
He says he will not be stopping his move to elect what he called broad leaders to every office in the land. A 16-year-old girl who activists say was attacked by the Iranian morality police for not wearing a hijab has died. That's according to Iranian state media. Amrita Gurvan suffered severe injuries earlier this month. That's according to Human Rights Organization. Authorities blamed her death on a pre-existing medical condition. Heavy rain has caused severe flooding in Hastings, where the town's shopping centre was evacuated. The East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service said that they were helping with the flooding and instructed people to move their cars from the area. Let's get the latest sports now. Here's David.
This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality Insurance. Onside, eh? But if we look around the back, offside. Thought as much.
Hello again, South Africa are rugby world champions for a record fourth time. They beat New Zealand 12 points to 11 in Paris. All South Africa's points came in the first half from the bird of Andre Pollard, who kicked 4 penalties. The All Blacks had captain Sam Cane sent off after half an hour for a challenge on Jesse Creel, but managed to score the only try of the game when fullback Bowden Barrett crossed the line. Despite late pressure from New Zealand, South Africa held on for victory to add to their triumphs of 2019, 2007 and 1995. In the Premier League, Arsenal's Eddie Nketiah scored his first Premier League hat-trick in a 5-0 win over bottom-of-the-table Sheffield United. Striker only came into the side in place of the injured Gabriel Jesus, but Arsenal head after 28 minutes. Nketiah made it 2-0 early in the second half with his second of the game. He saved his best till last to make it 3-0 just before the hour. Fabio Vieira penalty made it 4-0 before Takahiro Tomiyasu out of the fifth to win Cup's Tottenham's lead at the top of the table after 2 points. Wolves twice came from a goal down to get a point at home to Newcastle. Alan Wilson took Newcastle ahead midway through the first half after a mistake by Wolves goalkeeper Jose Sarr. Mario Lemina then equalised for the home side after an hour. Wilson added Newcastle's second from a penalty spot before Frankie Chan made it 2-2. Staying on unbeaten runs of 5 matches. Newcastle are up to 6th and Wolves up to 8th. It's taken them 10 games, but Bournemouth have their first Premier League win of the season. Philip Bimbim scored the all-important goal, a 2-1 victory over Burnley. Charlie Taylor had put Burnley in front, and Antoine Semenyo equalised before Bimbim's second half winner. In the lunchtime game, goals from Ethan Pinnock and Brian Mbeumo gave Brentford a 2-0 win at Chelsea. In the Championship, QPR have sacked manager Gareth Ainsworth after their 10th defeat of the season. They lost 2-1 at home to leaders Leicester. Harry Winks scored the winner, his first goal for the club. In the Scottish Premiership League, Celtic are 8 points clear at the top, despite a goalless draw with Hibernian. St Mirren moved level on points with second-place Rangers after a 4-0 win over St Johnstone. Elsewhere, Dundee won 2-0 at Livingston, while Motherwell and Notts County finished 3-3. Harry Kane has scored some great goals over the course of his career, but none much better than this one. The England captain scored from inside his own half for Bayern Munich in an 8-0 win over Darmstadt. So he had 2 players sent off. Kane went on to complete a hat-trick. Elsewhere, another England player, Jude Bellingham, scored both goals in Real Madrid's 2-1 win over rivals Barcelona. He's now scored 13 goals in his first 13 games since his son moved from Dortmund. England have completed the Rugby League Series win over Tonga. They won the second match in the series, 14 points to 4, to take an uncertain 2-0 lead. Warrington's made Ashton score both England tries. Thrilling game of the Cricket World Cup saw Australia beat New Zealand by 5 runs. Australia made 388 in their innings. Travis Head smashing 109 from 67 balls. And opening stand 175 for David Warner. In reply, New Zealand kept up with the run rates. Batsman Ravindra hit 116 off 89 balls. And after this, New Zealand needing 19 to win from the final over and 6 from the last ball. They could only manage a single. It's Australia's full straight win in the competition. They remain on course for a place in the semi-finals, as do New Zealand, despite that performance. There's more now on Sky Sports News. We're back later.
Full time? Never. There's always room for a biscuit.
Let's take a look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, your settling weather will continue across the weekend and into next week. Low pressure approaching the country.